Archangel Michael and Jesus says, "You will lose both of us if you skip. You have only 15 seconds." God says, "Chosen one, do not skip. No matter what, open it quickly, my beloved child. Listen deeply, for it is in this moment that may appear quiet and still. You are not reading this by mistake. You didn't arrive at this moment because of a random scroll. Something sacred guided you here, something quiet and divine. Heaven does not shout, it whispers. And right now, the whisper is growing louder. Not to rush you, not to scare you, but to gently say, we are here. And we've always been here. Archangel Michael stands on your right. Jesus stands on your left. And in between them is you, the one God calls his own. Not because you earned it. Not because you were perfect. But because you were chosen. Heaven is not far. It is near. So near, that if you close your eyes, you'll feel the presence that's been following you, not out of control, but out of care. Jesus has been walking with you through rooms where no one noticed your silent tears. Archangel Michael has been circling you through moments when the weight was too much to speak aloud. And now, together, they've been given permission to reveal something you've waited your entire life to hear. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. And you are no longer required to carry this weight in silence. This moment is sacred not because it's urgent, but because it's divine. It's not about 15 seconds. It's about one holy breath. One pause. One opening of the heart that changes the direction of your entire spirit. Because what Jesus is saying now is simple but eternal. Come back to me. You've been trying so hard, but I never left your side. And Michael, with his mighty calmness, echoes softly, you have no idea how protected you've been. We've been keeping watch. And now, we want you to finally rest. Rest, not just in your body, but in your soul. Rest in knowing that you're not late. You're right on time. That everything that fell apart wasn't punishment. It was preparation. You were never meant to be defined by the people who misunderstood you. You were meant to be lifted by the one who formed you. And he's lifting you now, not into stress or panic, but into a new clarity. A clarity where you stop doubting whether you're worthy of love, of joy, of peace. You are. And not just worthy, you're destined for it. Chosen one, don't walk away from this feeling. Let it sit with you. Let it enter the quiet places of your heart that still ache for something real. Let heaven finish what it started. Let Jesus hold what you thought you had to hide. Let Archangel Michael fight the battles you thought you had to carry alone. Because the truth is, you were never meant to carry them. You were meant to release them. And now is that time. Some of the greatest moments of your life didn't happen when you were surrounded by people. They happened when no one was watching. When you were sitting quietly, looking out of the window. When you whispered a broken prayer that nobody else could hear. When you felt like giving up, but for some reason, you didn't. And do you know why? Because Jesus was there. Because Michael was there. Because even when you didn't feel spiritual, heaven still saw you as sacred. They watched you carry weights you didn't speak about. They watched you forgive without an apology. They watched you show up for others when no one showed up for you. And through it all, they whispered gently to one another in the unseen realms of light, "They are stronger than they know, but soon, they won't have to be strong alone." And now, that time has come. This message is not an accident. It's a holy visitation. Not for your fear, but for your freedom. Because you've walked long enough with your head down. This is your moment to rise, not in ego, but in divine recognition. Jesus isn't calling you to religion. He's calling you to restoration. To come home, not to a building, but to the love you were always created for. The love that doesn't rush you, fix you, or shame you. The love that sits with you, stays with you, and says, "I still choose you." Because He does. Every single day, even on the days when you forgot how to pray. Even when your faith was a flicker instead of a flame. Even when your heart was too tired to hope. He still stayed. And Archangel Michael? He walked ahead of you through storms you never knew existed. Blocking things you never even saw. Whispering to darkness, "Not this one. This one is marked by God." You've been wondering why certain doors closed, why some people left, why certain blessings took so long to arrive. But beloved, what if I told you, it wasn't a delay, it was a divine design? What if the silence wasn't rejection, it was protection? What if the wait wasn't punishment, it was preparation for something bigger than you even asked for? And now, in this very moment, Jesus wants to remind you, you are not disqualified. You are not behind. You are not too broken, too late, too far gone. You are right here, right now, and heaven still calls you, mine. This isn't about rushing to fix your life. This is about pausing long enough to remember, your life is already covered in grace. That Jesus doesn't walk away from your weakness, He walks into it. That Michael doesn't defend the perfect, he defends the chosen. And chosen doesn't mean famous. Chosen doesn't mean loud. Chosen doesn't mean always strong. It just means God looked at you, smiled, and said, "I'm going to love them anyway. I'm going to carry them through." And He did. And He is. And He will. So breathe now. Let the pressure fall off your chest. Let the voices in your head grow quiet. You don't need to earn what has already been gifted. You just need to receive it. This moment isn't a demand. It's an invitation. To return to that sacred place in your heart that never stopped believing in something more. And that more, it's right here. Not in this message. Not in these words. But in the God who is wrapping you in invisible peace as you read them. The God who whispers through love, not through fear. The God who says, even now, I choose you again. Do you remember the quiet nights when no one called, no one checked, and yet, you survived? The mornings where you got up without applause, the evenings where you laid your head down with questions but no answers, and still, your heart kept beating? That was not coincidence. That was not just inner strength. That was heaven's hand. That was Jesus breathing with you. That was Archangel Michael standing guard at your soul's door, saying in the silence, I will not let them break. I will hold them until they remember who they are. And now, you're remembering. You're remembering that love doesn't always shout. That miracles don't always make noise. That the greatest transformations often happen in moments where no one is looking. You're remembering that your name was written in the folds of heaven before you were ever formed in the arms of this world. That even your silence has been sacred. That even your waiting has been watched. And heaven? Heaven has never grown tired of you. Not once. There is something so deeply holy about being known, fully. Without the need to perform, explain, or earn your way into love. That's what Jesus offers. That's why he stands beside you now, not as a judge, but as a friend. As the one who sat in every empty room you cried in. As the one who didn't walk away when your faith grew quiet. As the one who placed angels in your path even when you didn't realize it. You didn't survive alone. You were carried. And Michael, strong and silent, hasn't stopped circling your name. While you walked into jobs that didn't see your worth, he whispered, just a little longer. When your heart trusted people who couldn't carry your soul, he shielded the core of who you were. When you fell to your knees in confusion, not knowing what to pray, he covered you in light. Because chosen doesn't mean easy. Chosen means protected, even in the fire. And now heaven is doing something different. Now they're not just protecting you. They're presenting you. Presenting the healed you. The softened you. The wiser, clearer, deeper, more radiant version of who you always were beneath the hurt. This version of you is not rising out of force, but out of divine timing. It's not loud, but it's powerful. And the space you're walking into now won't require explanation, it will recognize you. Like a room that's been waiting to exhale. Like a light that turns on not from your touch, but from your arrival. Jesus wants you to know this: you were never meant to be invisible. You were never forgotten. And you were never too broken for me. And Michael adds in silence, this moment is not pressure, this moment is proof. Proof that your tears were not wasted. Proof that your prayers were not ignored. Proof that your delay was never denial, it was divine design. So breathe, beloved. You don't have to do anything more. You don't have to get it all together before heaven wraps around you. This is not about your perfection, this is about your permission. The permission to stop running from love. The permission to stop skipping sacred moments like this. The permission to say, maybe, just maybe, I was always enough for this kind of love. There's a moment when the soul stops asking for explanations and starts opening itself to presence. Not the presence of the world, not the noise, not the titles, not the expectations, but the presence that comes from a realm where time does not rush, and love does not run out. That's where you are now. In this space between breath and belief, Jesus leans closer and whispers with the voice that once calmed storms, I never needed you to be perfect. I only needed you to be real. You've been taught to hide the cracks, to mask the fatigue, to rehearse strength as if heaven wasn't already watching the truth behind your eyes. But heaven never needed your performance, it longed for your permission. The moment you stop trying to prove you're worthy is the moment you begin to feel what worthiness actually is. And Archangel Michael? He's not asking you to fight anymore. He's laying his sword at your feet and saying, it is done. You are safe. The war you thought was yours to win alone was always ours to carry with you. This isn't the beginning of your journey. This is the unfolding of what's always been written inside you. You weren't chosen because of your status or your success. You were chosen because, in the silence of heaven, when the question echoed, who will carry the light through the dark? Your spirit answered yes before your body ever took its first breath. That's why you felt things more deeply. That's why your heart often breaks in places others don't even feel. That's why your silence sometimes aches louder than words. Because the weight you carry is not weakness, it is sacred. It is the echo of God's whisper woven into your being. Jesus remembers every moment you sat in your room and wondered if your prayers were just bouncing off the ceiling. He was there. Not just listening, but holding. Every moment you felt like you were forgotten, he was collecting those minutes in his hands like treasure. And now he returns them to you in the form of clarity. The kind of clarity that doesn't come from knowing everything, but from knowing you're not alone anymore. You never were. The love of heaven was never delayed. It was simply waiting for you to pause long enough to feel it. Not in miracles. Not in lightning. But in this very breath. Archangel Michael has seen what tried to stop you. He has seen the moments where others spoke against your name, where rooms rejected your presence, where even your own thoughts turned against you. But he kept guarding. Not just your path, but your identity. He didn't just protect your body, he protected your calling. That thing inside you that wouldn't give up even when everything else did. That fire in you wasn't stubbornness, it was divine evidence. It was the breath of God saying, "Not yet. I'm not done with them." And now, heaven isn't asking you to fight harder. It's inviting you to feel deeper. To sit in this holy stillness and realize that everything you've been chasing already exists in the presence that never left your side. The comfort you wanted from people, the validation you begged for in silence, the closure you tried to create in your own mind, none of it was ever lost. It was simply waiting for the moment when your spirit would quiet long enough to hear one sentence that changes everything: "We were always here." So stop rushing. Stop scrolling past the softness. You are not being summoned to do more, you are being called to receive. And receiving is not weakness. It is reverence. It is saying, maybe I don't have to earn what was always meant for me. Maybe grace isn't something you qualify for, it's something you fall into when you finally let go. And if you listen carefully right now, you will hear the voice of Jesus, not as a command, but as a comfort: "Welcome home." And behind him, Archangel Michael smiles softly, not with urgency, but with knowing, "You've made it, and we've been waiting." There is a kind of quiet that does not come from emptiness, but from arrival. And today, that silence surrounds you. Not because something is ending, but because something eternal has settled inside your heart. Jesus doesn't have to knock anymore, because you've finally opened the door from within. Archangel Michael doesn't need to fight for your attention, because your spirit is already awake. This is not a moment you stumbled into. This is the very moment heaven waited to unfold since before time had a name. You've prayed for clarity, you've wept for answers, you've begged for peace, but what heaven waited for was you. You've always thought the message was about something outside you, a sign, a door, a miracle waiting to happen. But the truth is, beloved, you were the message. The moment you slowed down and let your soul breathe. The moment you dared to listen deeper. That's when the divine symphony began. This moment is not about pressure. It's about presence. You are not being asked to prove anything. You are simply being reminded of what God has already placed inside you. Your compassion. Your strength. Your capacity to feel. These are not accidents, they are divine technology woven by the hand of the Creator who trusted you with this sacred life. Jesus looks at you with the eyes that have never looked away. He doesn't see your failures, your delays, or the detours that stole your energy. He sees every moment you loved when it wasn't returned. He sees every time you stayed when you could have left. He sees every silent forgiveness you gave when no one asked. And He calls all of it holy. You see a timeline that feels broken. He sees a heart that kept beating. A soul that stayed soft. A spirit that said yes to love, even when life gave you reasons to close. That is power. That is what makes you chosen. Archangel Michael hasn't stood beside you because you're weak. He has stood beside you because you are worth protecting. Not because you're in danger, but because your destiny holds too much light to be left uncovered. You didn't choose to be a warrior. Your life made you one. But now, Michael speaks something new into the air. It's time to receive the peace you fought for. The storm is not your identity. The survival is not your home. You are being moved now, not by force, but by favor. Into stillness. Into clarity. Into a space where you finally feel the weight of love instead of the weight of expectations. Heaven is not somewhere far above. It is already present, swirling around this very breath. It's in the invisible hands holding your heart when no one sees the pressure you hide behind your smile. It's in the warmth that settles in your chest when someone says, "I see you." It's in the tears that fall, not from sadness, but from recognition. That's what you're feeling right now. The recognition that you were never unseen. That you don't have to keep running. That you don't have to keep waiting for permission to rest. Heaven has already spoken, "Come as you are." And now Jesus leans closer, not with a demand, but with a declaration. His voice isn't loud, but it's clear. I'm not leaving. I've never left. And no matter where you go next, I will go with you. And Archangel Michael, still beside you, speaks without words, yet your soul understands, you are covered in light. Not because you prayed perfectly, but because you were always precious. Let this be your moment. Not to impress, not to achieve, but to receive. Heaven does not knock on hearts that have no value. It whispers to the ones who have forgotten how valuable they are. And now, finally, you remember. There are moments in life that don't feel like moments at all. They feel like eternity disguised in a single breath. This is one of them. Not because something dramatic is happening outside, but because something eternal is aligning inside you. For the first time in a very long time, you are standing still without resisting it. You are not chasing a breakthrough, you are becoming the place where breakthrough finally lands. The door you've been knocking on. It's been waiting for you to realize you were the key. The miracle you kept searching for. It's been unfolding quietly in the way your heart still hopes. And now, Jesus stands beside you, not to rescue you, but to remind you that heaven was never missing. Heaven was always waiting, for you to open, for you to soften, for you to finally say, "I'm ready." And you are. Not because everything in your life is in order, but because your spirit is. Not because all the noise has disappeared, but because you've learned how to hear God's voice in the middle of it. The voice that says, "You don't have to rush to be worthy. You already are." The voice that whispers, "You are still mine, even when you doubt yourself." The voice that never shouted, yet never stopped. Jesus has been with you through every shadowed hour, but today, He walks with you in the light. Not because you proved something, but because you finally believed something, that maybe, just maybe, you were always loved more deeply than you thought. And Michael? He is still on your right, his armor glowing not with the heat of battle, but with the beauty of completion. His wings are not raised in defense anymore, they are wide in reverence. He sees it now. You see it now. You've made it. Through every internal storm, through every room that dimmed your shine, through every year you thought God had gone silent. You made it, not because you had the strength, but because you had the light. And now, that light is no longer hidden. It is rising. Quietly. Boldly. Naturally. This is what heaven has waited for, not a perfect you, but a present you. You, in this moment, breathing, feeling, not looking away from your soul anymore. This version of you doesn't need to know all the answers. This version of you is finally able to ask the sacred question, what if I am not too late for the life heaven still sees for me? And Jesus answers without hesitation, you're not. In fact, you're right on time. You see, heaven doesn't operate on clocks. Heaven works on surrender. And you, beloved, have finally surrendered, not in defeat, but in divine alignment. The burdens you once carried as proof of your failure are now being rewritten as proof of your faith. Every "not yet" you survived was never God's rejection, it was His redirection toward something gentler, deeper, and more true. That truth is blooming now, not just in your story, but in your spirit. And you don't have to try so hard to become it. You already are it.